I am somewhat running out of things to talk about. I thought about discussing economics, political philosophy, like things like affirmative policy, like uh, socialism versus right-wing conservative policies, and monopoly versus patent system. I also thought about talking about the rawest, the most original form of philosophy. However, I am also somewhat reticent uh, to discuss those things because generally I am very afraid uh, very afraid of pontification. Ironically, this video is called daily pontification. But generally, I avoid certain groups of people like plague. These people, okay, it is very hard to generalize and conclude what these people share, what characteristics these people share in general. But most of them happen to be people who have spent a substantive amount of their life in things, in humanities subjects, in social scientific subjects. I'm not even sure whether they did have they done science stream studies, science stream subjects in high school. But it seems like they have teach science, arts for a really long time. So these people tend to be people from banking, accounting, business. Definitely people who major in economics and law school. I actually generally quite disdain a lot of people from law school, people who graduated from with a law degree. And definitely there are some people, I'm not too sure why, they find discussing armchair philosophy exhilarating, although actually philosophy is actually applied masturbation, which I agree a lot. There is a meme that says philosophy is applied masturbation. It has really very little application in life. Is quite useless. It's better to do things. I generally disdain this group of people, and therefore I'm very afraid of discussing about economics, philosophy, what politics. The main reason is this all these things tend to be very macro in scale. It is very hard to falsify. That means it is very hard to validate whether a person's claim is correct or wrong. It is very easy to bullshit and pontificate lots of things. Every single person has an opinion. As the saying goes, opinion is just like an asshole. Everyone has one. However, in the opposite, one can't easily have an opinion in physics, in mathematics, in computer science, in painting, in music composing, because those things, right, require first of all, those things are very rigorous. It requires, I mean, it is very easy to invalidate whether a person's opinion or statements are bullshit or not. There are steps to do so. It is very obvious to distinguish whether an opinion is ill-formed or well-formed. Yeah, so I generally avoid, or at least I remind myself, okay, whenever you want to talk about philosophy, talk about economics, talk about politics, you want to remind yourself that you are on the way of becoming stupid. I constantly remind myself, okay, I am wasting my time. Whenever I'm talking about those things, I constantly, deep down in my mind, I remind myself, okay, you are wasting your time. It feels addictive, it feels great, but you need to keep warning yourself. You need to stop as soon as possible. All right. And hence, just now I said that, okay, it would be great if one spends a lot of time in discussing music composing, discussing literature, writing novels, discussing about physics, computer science, chemistry. However, the main problem, of course, I have is uh, I am no expert in any of those. In fact, there's just so many things I don't understand. For example, I don't even understand the experiment that successfully proved theory of relativity. I don't understand how was gravitational wave validated through the LIGO experiment. I don't even understand whether atom is. I don't even fully understand the experiment to prove atoms exist. Of course, I've read somewhere before. It has something to do with the Brownian motion that Einstein talked about in one of his paper, and I sometimes question. Okay, we in high school we were told about periodic table. You have 118 elements. Then you are told about high school students are normally told about every single thing is made out of atoms, and in every single atom there are subatomic particles, neutron, electron, proton. But all these things, right? Of course, when I was a high school student, I accepted all those things told by my teacher as if they are axioms. So dogmatically, I accepted them. I treated them as dogma. But as I grew up, I started to wonder. Oh yes, I never really asked how could we be 100% sure those are true. All right. Of course, actually, those things are quite rigorous. There are a lot of scientific experiments to prove that, but I don't really understand them yet. So everything seems quite fiddly, quite quite precarious. And of course, in mathematics, it is about the same. I still don't fully understand uh, how is a sphere's volume formula derived. I don't fully understand differential calculus, integral calculus. In physics, I don't really understand what is Schrodinger's cat, Heisenberg's uncertainty principle, and definitely I have almost zero clue regarding Maxwell's the four core electromagnetisms equations. So I have problem, although they are rigorous and I aspire to often talk about those hard sciences and also talk about painting, literature, novels. I have a huge gap, not good enough in talking about those things. Literature is the same. I know a lot of novels, but have not really read them. Things like Shakespeare, I know quite a lot of play from him. But so many of them I have not really read them except Romeo and Juliet, and definitely all those classical Russian literature like Tolstoy, War and Peace. Uh, who else? What is this? Dostoevsky, Crime and Punishment, Tolstoy's Anna Karenina. All these novels, I know about them very briefly, but I've not read about them. So I am in a conundrum, a labyrinth, things that can easily be talked about. Those social science, politics, left wing, right wing, all those applied masturbation, right? I want to forbid myself from talking about those things. Economics is a social science. Microeconomics seems to be very rigorous. Macroeconomics is very voodoo. Macroeconomics is almost like astrology, like just a bullshit. So those things that I could easily talk about, I forbid myself, and those things I wish I could talk about, I don't. I have a huge knowledge gap. So I think maybe I will resort to talk about one short thing regarding English grammar. Of course, it is not a science; it's a certain rules for using language. But people back then in ancient days treated it as an art. English, so English grammar. A lot of people tremble. I mean, high school students tremble when they are told that to learn grammar or they have grammatical mistakes. So in general, English grammar is not a small area. It has quite a lot of things, but it is not scientific generally. It is just a way native English speakers speak or write sentences. The obvious one is tenses and mood, and then you have things regard like articles, gerunds, subject verb agreement, and you have to conjugate a lot of verbs according to the subject. If a subject is plural, singular, you have to conjugate the verbs in the different ways. Also, you have to conjugate the verbs according tenses into participle form. And in general, there are actually 12 tenses in English grammar. The 12 tenses, people thought that there are only three, past, present, and future. But actually, those could be subdivided. You have simple, continuous, or some people call it progressive. All right, and then the third one is perfect, and last one is perfect continuous. So you have four in a vertical sense, and then horizontally you have past, present, and future. And then if you could draw an Excel, you have a 3 times 4 table. As a result, you have 12 kinds of tenses. You have, for example, the first one, simple. You have simple past, simple present, and simple future. So those are the simplest. You have I ate an apple yesterday, I eat an apple, and I will eat an apple tomorrow. All right. Then the second layer, you have continuous. Continuous tense is all those sentences you will add ing at the end. You are doing. So past continuous, I was eating an apple. Present continuous, I am eating an apple. And future continuous is I will be eating an apple. The third one, perfect tense, is slightly complex. Perfect tense means you have completed it, but you still care about it right now. So past perfect tense is something like this. I had eaten an apple. All right. Present perfect, I have eaten an apple. And future perfect tense is I will have eaten an apple. And the difference between, it is very tricky. This perfect tense is quite similar to simple past. People often mistake and conflate these two. In fact, it is quite subtle. It's hard to explain without a graph or figure. And the last one is perfect continuous. Perfect continuous is the most unique, most esoteric, and most uncanny, but we also rarely use them. So past perfect continuous is something like this. I had been eating an apple. Present perfect continuous, I have been eating an apple. And the last one, the bottom right corner, you have future perfect continuous tense. So the example of a sentence is I will have been eating an apple. It's really odd. We almost never use this kind of this tense. I will have been eating an apple. And so there goes the 12 tenses. I maybe will talk about other aspects tomorrow. See you. Goodbye.